What's up, everybody? It's Big Kiqo here. Today we're doing some UFC 314 predictions. We're doing some of the prelims and all the main card. I don't know what's happened on the early prelims, and when I looked, I didn't really recognize too many people, so I'm just going to start on the prelims. First fight in the prelims, we got Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. These two are some veterans at featherweight. I haven't really seen the last couple of fights of these two, but I know they usually go to decision, or sometimes Darren Elkins can get a finish. I think this will end up going to a decision, and I'm going to give this to Darren Elkins because I believe Erosa has lost a few. Might be getting him mixed up with someone different, but I want to say he's lost a few in a row now. And I know Darren Elkins still has a little bit of skills left for his age. The next fight we got is Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Jim Miller lost his last fight against Bobby Green at UFC 300, but he got outstruck in that fight. And really, I think Bobby's the better striker anyway, as far as just straight up boxing goes, and that's how most of that fight went. I don't believe it went to the ground, but I could be wrong because I watched a lot of fights since then. Chase Hooper's still pretty young. He got some good wrestling skills for the most part. I haven't really seen too much of the striking. I haven't seen him fight in probably about a year. I haven't watched a lot of the last year's fight nights. I haven't watched a lot of those, so I might have missed a fight or two he's had. But his main thing is wrestling, so I think Jim Miller might got this because he's good at grappling and he's pretty good at striking too. He just got outstruck in his last fight. But if Chase Hooper still is about as good as he was last time as I've seen him in striking, then I feel like Jim Miller has the advantage as far as striking. Obviously, Chase has the advantage size wise. I think he is bigger, but I think Jim Miller wins this one. I'll say round 2 submission. I'll say that. The next fight we got is a women's strawweight fight. Is Yan Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba. I probably butchered both of those names, so I'm sorry. But Xiaonan fought Wei Li last year at 300, and she didn't do too great in that fight. She survived, but as far as actually fighting goes, she didn't do too well. But I don't think I've ever seen her opponent fight. So this is going to be a really hard one to predict because the fight with Wei Li is the only fight I have seen of Yan. So she didn't do bad, but against Wei Li, she's just so dominant and she just makes everyone look so much worse than she is. So this is going to be a hard one to predict, but I'll go with Yan Xiaonan by unanimous decision. Next fight we got is Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson is a very tall man for his weight class, and he looks very lanky. He's built kind of weird. Dan Ige, he's small, explosive. He's a good all-around fighter. I've seen some of Sean Woodson's last couple fights, and his striking is not bad, but he's been dropped by some people who probably have worse striking than him. And Dan Ige has a lot of power, and he has some decent striking to go along with it. And he's good at takedowns, so he can easily take down Woodson too if he wanted to, I think. So I think Dan wins this by unanimous decision, but he could easily win this by a KO, TKO type thing too, because like I said, he has a lot of power in his hands, even though he's a smaller dude. The next fight we got is Dominic Reyes versus Nikita Krylov. Krylov hasn't fought in about 2 years, I believe. He's Ukrainian, and a lot of people thought he went to the war and died for some reason. I didn't know about that till recently, but I saw a video about it recently. And Dominic Reyes is on a 2-fight win streak. It is against Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby, but he finished Jacoby and he finished Smith. But Smith was coming off of a loss of his best friend and coach at the time, and it's not really a great win, but at the end of the day, Dominic Reyes did win that fight, so he will be fighting Krylov next. And I haven't seen Krylov fight too many times, and like I said, he hasn't fought in 2 years, so I don't really remember his last fight. But Don Reyes looks to be getting his confidence back, so he might have a little bit of a chance. But if I remember correctly, Krylov is like a pretty good all-around fighter, and Reyes is mostly a striker. Haven't seen his wrestling be tested too much, but I think Krylov will end up winning this fight by second round TKO. I think that would be my prediction. The next fight we got listed is Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva, and everyone knows about the whole Bryce Mitchell situation. First podcast ever, he says some very questionable things, and John Silva won a fight about a month and a half ago and called Bryce Mitchell out for this fight. Now, stylistically, it's a striker versus grappler fight, a classic style matchup, but I haven't seen John Silva's wrestling be tested since he got to the UFC. He's still pretty new. Like he just got signed like last year, and he's finished everyone, or he's finished everybody but Drew Dober. But Drew Dober got finished by doctor stoppage technically, so you can count that as a TKO if you want. But anyway, John Silva faces Bryce Mitchell, and this will be an interesting fight because John Silva seems to have some pretty good power for featherweight, and his striking's pretty good. Bryce Mitchell, as we've seen, he's been brutally knocked out already, so he can definitely get knocked out by someone with a lot of power. But if John Silva's wrestling isn't good, and that's Bryce Mitchell's like best tool, he can just take him down, submit him easily. We'll have to see how this one goes. Like I'm really torn on what I want to give it. I don't want Bryce Mitchell to win because of everything, and John Silva, I like watching him fight, but like I said, I'm a little skeptical. I'm going to give it to John Silva. I'm going to give it a round one KO TKO, but I'm not 100% sure. Next up, we got Yair Rodriguez welcoming Patricio Pitbull to the UFC. This will be a really fun fight because they're both very good at striking, and Pitbull's good at grappling too, if I can remember correctly. But of course, Yair is always fun to watch. Patricio was fun to watch in Bellator too. This will be a really fun matchup. I don't really have much to say. I think this could be potential fight of the night though, if not for Patty and Chandler if it goes all three. But I'll give my prediction on that next, obviously. But I think this Yair and Pitbull fight, I think it'll go all 3 rounds, and I kind of think Yair Rodriguez will end up winning this by unanimous decision. Chandler versus Pimblett is the co-main, and it's 5 rounds. I don't think it goes to a decision. I think Michael Chandler has got this in the bag. I can't even lie. Paddy Pimblett, he's faced some decent competition, but they've gave him a lot of good matchups while he's been coming up. He did beat Tony Ferguson while he was on a 6-fight losing streak. He beat Bobby Green, who's a pretty good gatekeeper for the division, but his weakness is wrestling, and that's Paddy's strength. He's decent at striking, but his strength is the grappling and submission game. I think Chandler is going to end up winning this by a second round TKO, though, because there's a big gap between this competition that Pimblett has fought and that Chandler has fought. He did fight Tony as well, but he knocked Tony out. Paddy went to a decision, and honestly, in a really boring fight that he lost the 3rd round in. And Paddy lost to Jared Gordon. We all know it too. So, I think Chandler wins this by second round TKO. This one was one I was really torn on, but it's Volk versus Diego Lopez. But the more I'm starting to think about it, Volk lost his last 2 by knockout or TKO. The Islam fight, he got head kick knocked out, and then he fought Topuria, and then got knocked out in the 2nd round in a very short time period, within 3 months. And that's not good. He might have took a year off, but he's getting older, and that can ruin a man's chin. So I think Lopez might get it within the first round or 2 by KO, TKO. I'm going to give it a 2nd round TKO. But let me know what y'all think, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.